Hello everyone. First of all, I would welcome you to this live session. In this live session, we are going to discuss about classes and objects, and we are going to discuss about the main concept of Java, that is OOPS. OOPS is the most important concept in Java because with OOPS you can solve real world problems, right? In first lecture, I gave you a short introduction about object oriented programming, what it is. I'm going to repeat that. I'm going to revise that once again in this lecture, and we are going to discuss about classes and objects and the most important concept of OOPS, that is inheritance, right? But before going forward, I would like to announce something. For some reasons, for some medical reasons, we have to pause this event after this lecture. This will, the rest remaining topics that are in interfaces, exceptional handling, and packages and libraries. These topics would be covered in a later section, that is our in advanced Java. In that event, we would be discussing about these left topics, that are exceptional handling, that are packages and libraries, interfaces. Then we would discuss about JDBC, JSP, collection, multi-threading. Right. So the main topics in Java are going to be discussed in those advanced Java part. But for today, I would be giving you a short assignment, a short project as well. You do that project, and I don't know, maybe in a 1 2 weeks, in 1 2 weeks, we would launch that advanced Java event. So be with us, and that's it. So let's begin our lecture. Right. So in earlier I told you that why object-oriented programming was such in air, right? Why object-oriented programming is important. But before we understand object-oriented programming, let's understand what was before object-oriented programming, so that we can understand its problems. The before another before version of programming, that was procedural programming. It is just another method for programming. What procedural programming does is, you have suppose 10 method, you have suppose 10 functions, right? And each function has 10 variables, right? So when what you have to do is, you have to create 10 functionalities, right? You have to create 10 blocks of code, and in that code, each code would have its own variables, its own data sets, right? So when you're doing that, let's take an example of vehicle, right? So in you suppose you're creating you're a vehicle company owner, right? And you have to create, and let's say, a program, right, to manage all your vehicles at the same time, right? And so you have a car as a product, you have truck as a product, you have all type of four wheelers as a product, right? So when you have such a big data set, when you have such a big product, right? So in that method, it is really difficult for us to create in a one in a variable for truck, and then one variable for car, one variable for other products, right? So it's really difficult for us, right? Rather than doing that, what we can do is, we can create a class, right? And in that class, we define all our variables, all our data sets, right? That are same in all objects. Now objects are products, right? They are our truck, car, or whatever products that we have, right? So these are products. So I took one example back then, that was, we have a vehicle as a class, right? And in that class, we can, under the main method, we can declare different types of objects, right? And objects, we introduced work and a car and truck, right? And these objects were calling that in a variable, in a top speed and acceleration, right? So rather than going to the procedural method, where we would be creating one function for car, then one function for truck, here what we are doing is, we're just creating one function for vehicle, and then one class, sorry, and one class for vehicle, and in that vehicle we are creating a method, right? So in that method, and we are now just typing a one liner code, where we create an object, and we can access those elements, those parameters, those variables through our object, right? So it makes our programming quite simpler, right? So that's why, object-oriented programming is much more preferred, and it is what we are using in real world. Now, let me show you one basic code of object-oriented programming, which I showed in the first lecture. Let me just copy this code, and yeah, let me just share my screen. Yeah, cool. Right. So this was the code that I showed you in the first lecture. Right. So we have a class over here, right? A class in which we have defined few variables that are top speed and acceleration. We have some properties like color, right? And we can define more properties over here, and weight or ground clearance or many things like that, right? Now what we have done is we in the main class and in the main method, we have simply just created one object car, right? Suppose for our product car, we have created this, right? And we have printed some statement which is accessing the top speed variable of the class vehicle, right? So this is quite easier to do rather than creating 10 variables for 10 different products, right? So that's what in object oriented programming reduces your line of code significantly, and also it reduces your effort significantly. Being a lazy programmer, always prefer to not increase my line of code and always keep it short and simple, right? So this is why object oriented programming is important. So this was just the brief of object oriented programming. Let's take another example, right? So move to the GitHub once again, guys. And in this 1 hour lecture, it's quite difficult for me to cover all the examples that we have designed. What you can do is you can go to our GitHub, and you can just simply look over any example that you want, right? So I'm just discussing the important ones over here. You can all examples are basic and simple, right? It's quite easy to understand them. So this is the basic program for calculator, right? So what in like in calculator, right? So rather than creating one function for add, then one function for subtract, then another function, and doing all those stuff, what we are going through is we are going through a object oriented approach, right? So first of all, the first thing, we have created, notice here we have three main classes over here, right? So we have a class calculator, right? Then we have a class print data, right? And then we have our main class, right? So we have three classes over here, and in main class we have method main. So even if you have three classes or 10 classes or 100 of classes, first thing that would run is main method, right? And from main method you have to call your class, right? And any class that you want to access, so in that class it would access there, and you can run your code according to that, right? But you have to first of all go according to the main class, right? So this is a main class, but let's move to the calculator first, right? The class calculator. In the class calculator, what I have done is I have first of all created a method add, right? How we create a method is simply just public int, and a public is the access modifier, right? And public means that you can anyone can access this, right? It's in a variables, it's data, anyone can access this. Private means only in a variables that are defined in this public, only parameters that are defined in this private method, only they can be accessed. but no one other than this method can access the parameters, right? So we have mainly two. There is another protected, right? So we can discuss about that later. So now in our method add, what I have done is I have first of all created two variables over here, right? Num1 and num2, both are integer, right? Notice the return type of this method is int only, right? So I have created a num1 and num2, right? And then I have printed a statement calculator class started, right? So that I could know that calculator class is being accessed, right? Now what it would return is num1 plus num2, right? So this addition would be integer because these both are integers and the return type is int. That's why it's perfectly fine over here, right? So it would return the integer value of num1 plus num2 in our in a class and a method main, right? So coming on to the main method, in main method we have a integer result, right? So we have integer result, and then we have introduced a scanner package, a scanner object, right? First of all, before we introduce the scanner object, and we have to create we have to import the scanner package, right? That is java.util.scanner, and in that we type the scanner s, right? The scanner is the class name and s is the object name, right? This is how we basically create an object of a class, right? So now in a I have created a integer over here a, right? And it is in a taking input, right? Now in order to create a object of calculator class, what I have to do is I have to go through the same method. That is first of all the class name, right? Then the object name, right? And then new, the keyword new, and then the class name, right, with brackets, right, and then enclose it by semicolon, right? So this is how I create an object, right? Now calculator can access, sorry, cal can access the class calculator, right? Now in result I have included it as cal dot add. Now what this means is that in a cal object, right, it can an access, it is calling the add method, right? It is calling the add method. So at this point the code would go to the class, to the method add, right? Now it would run this method. It is saying the num1 num2 and it is returning the value, right? So this is how it would basically run, and then it would return the value, that is num1 plus num2, right? So the result would be num1 plus num2. Here we have to create a placeholder, that is a and b, right? And now I have to print this data, right? uh, we can use system.out.print, but let's get into the habit of object orientation, right? So here I have another class print data, right, where I have created a object p data, right? So let's move towards print data class. And what I'm doing here is defining another method print over here, right? And it has a value, it basically is public, right? And it is not returning anything. So if you're not returning anything, then method would be void, right? So a variable is over here int value, right? Now and I have created a statement where I can be, basically know that okay, print data class has been started, right? Then the value, and then I have printed the value over here, right? So the value is passed from the statement, the return statement over there, right? Right. Value was passed over here, right, from main. So p data dot print, calling the method print and then passing the value result, right? Then coming to this class, this method print, and then the value would be printed over here, right? So this is how this basic program would work. But let's see if it is actually working or not. So move to our IntelliJ compiler IDE, right, and simply just run this. It's demanding input, so let's say 3 and 2, right? A calculator class was initiated, our print data class was initiated, right? And it is printing the digit 5 over there. Cool. So let's look at the uh, basic syntax. This is a basic syntax. I hope it's visible. Right, it's visible now. Okay, so I have a class. How to declare a class? Basically, the modifier name, right, and then the class name, right, and then there is the body and of the class where you can define your methods, your parameters, your variables, right. Now, in order to access this class, we would create an object, right. So basically, look it in this manner. Let's take an example of iPhone, right? Apple iPhone. What iPhone is basically an object, right? And your iPhone is basically an object, and what you're going to do with that object is in its functionality, right? So in you can call from your iPhone, you can take pictures from your iPhone, or you can use it for gaming purposes, right? Although that would be not great. So you can do many functionalities. No, all those functionalities are defined in your class, right? That's why defining your parameters properly over there is really important, right? So how you can create that object is simply the class name and then the object, right, and then the keyword new and then the class name again, right? So this is how you create. Sorry, the farm wouldn't be here. The class name would be here, right? Class underscore name. I was just typing an example. That's why the farm stick over there, right? So this is it. This is the basic of classes and objects, right? This is let's take another example. Let's take another example. Okay, what? Let's take an example of nested class, right? Now we have used nested for loop, we have used nested if else, right? Same way we have nested class also, right? So we have a nested class, and the reason for using the same is like we used in for loop and in if else, right? So in order to do that, the code is quite simple. In order to create a nested class, first of all, declare a outside class, right? How I have been declared it in a class, the keyword class, and then the name of the class, that is outer class, right? And I have created a variable x over here, right? Let's assume the variable is x, right? Now in this class, and remember the class is starting from this parenthesis and ending to this parenthesis, right? Inside this class, I have created another class, that is inner class, and it has an integer y over here which has value 5, right? Now, if I would be first of all, how I can call the outer class and how I can call the inner class. First of all, create an object of outer class, right? How the basic method of creating an object, right? Now I have named this object my outer, right? Now, again, now I have to create another object, right, of inner class. But in order to do that, how I would do it, the syntax is outer class dot inner class, right? This is how you're going to create an object of a inner class or a nested class, right? Now, it has when the object name is my inner, right? And again, when you would be you would come here, right? So my order dot new inner class, right? So the object of the previous class would be here, and this is how you're going to basically create the object of a nested class. Right, now let's just run this code and let's see what's the output. 15, right? Because it's giving it's printing my my y and x, right? So this is how we're going to basically use our classes, right? Now I can't use a lot of examples over here. We have time constraint as well, right? So I want you guys to practice a lot on this topic. Classes and objects are the must. If you know Java and you don't know classes and objects, then there is no point in learning Java, right? If you are going to land any internship in even in the basics, right? You might be searching for internships for your basic Java, right? Even in that, you would require your this classes and objects, right? This is the must. This thing is must, right? So make sure that you're practicing well, right? Okay. Now let's take a important concept of Java, that is inheritance. Now in basically let's take a real world example, right? Let's suppose that you have a family property, right? And you have a great family property, right? Now you and your grandfather owned a certain piece of land, right? Now he uh, inherited his property to your father, right? And now your father would be inheriting your the property to you, right? So this is the level of inheritance, right? And basically inheriting from a parent class. Oh my god, my phone battery ran. Right, this is how inheritance work. And we people inherit diseases, people inherit properties, intellectual properties, right? So inheritance is all around us, right? So we have inheritance in Java as well. Why we do that is because uh, wait a second, my phone is about to die. Keshav, I am going to be cut off anytime soon. My phone battery is 1%.
Okay, bro.
What to do?
Can you come from your laptop?
No, my laptop, audio doesn't work over there. Sorry, guys. It's I guess it's about time. Looks like God doesn't want us to continue this in a lecture. My Can you believe my battery dropped to zero and it's still on? Can you believe that? And it's on charging.
Seriously.
Man, okay, let's not continue this lecture. Wow, at the end we have six people watching, and when I was telling the important concept, about three people were watching. Wow. Okay, guys, this is adios, I guess. I would be and again taking this particular classes and objects again in advanced lecture, right? So make sure that you attend that, and we would be coming with that event about in 2-3 weeks, right? So till then, bye bye. Due to some medical condition, I'm not able to continue this lecture. right? And this event, and especially, right? So I apologize for that also. I apologize on the behalf of Growing Company and from Paradox Alpha community. Wish you all safe, be safe, and don't go out unnecessarily, right? So this is about it. I wish I could give you an example of nested class, but I would try to put that in group, right? Yes, and I'm sure this video would be recorded.
I think his phone got off, so we shall be ending the session now. And let's meet after 2 to 3 weeks and with more uh, great contents. Thank you for watching.